So I'm using my digital camera today to record instead of my MacBook to see if the quality is any better. I had to figure out how to make it focus. So my face isn't blurry. So hopefully it works this time. I told you I would be posting videos about mental health issues. One of the first ones that I want to tackle is self-harm or self-injury. So what is self-harm or self-injury? Intentional physical harm inflicted on oneself when someone purposely hurts themselves. It can include cutting, burning, banging your head against a wall. There are a lot of different forms of self-injury. Self-injury is not an act of someone who's trying to end their lives. Self-injury is mild to moderate physical harm. When a person engages in self-harm, their expectations. So this person expects to get something out of the act of hurting themselves. They expect relief from negative feelings or thoughts, to resolve some interpersonal difficulty, or it induces a positive feeling. Because when we cut ourselves, our body releases endorphins, which automatically calm us down and give us positive feelings. Self-injury is associated with at least one of these three things according to the DSM. According to the DSM-5, at least one of these three things need to be associated with the self-harm. Interpersonal difficulties, negative feelings or thoughts such as depression, anxiety, guilt, distress. The next thing it can be associated with is a preoccupation with the thoughts of acting out on those behaviors. So a preoccupation with the thought of hurting oneself that is acted on. It can also be associated with frequent thoughts of harming oneself. Those don't always need to be acted on. So self-injury does not include things like excessive piercings or tattoos. Those things are socially acceptable. Self-harm is a coping mechanism, something that people do to deal with feelings or emotions or things that they don't have another way of dealing with. Self-harm and the consequences of self-harm can interfere with a person's life. It can interfere with our academics, with our social life, because when we are engaging in self-harm or self-injury, we are beginning to isolate ourselves. Oftentimes we'll have racing thoughts and so a harder time concentrating, and that begins to bleed into our everyday life, and we can't accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. Why do people engage in self-harm? I've kind of talked about some of this a little bit, but I'm going to go over a few of the reasons why people may engage in self-harm. There's no way that I could cover every reason why someone self-harms. Some of these reasons that I list may not be reasons that you or someone you know does self-harm. These are just a few of the reasons. Sometimes people are overwhelmed by negative thoughts or feelings and they need some sort of a release. Self-harm acts as that release for them. They are able to, for a time, feel relief from those feelings and those thoughts that they are dealing with. Another reason that someone may self-harm is similar to that first reason. They have all of these feelings and these thoughts racing through their minds, and they need something to focus on other than those thoughts and those feelings. And so the self-harm is something that they can focus on for a brief period of time to alleviate those racing thoughts and feelings going through their mind. One thing that's important to know is that people usually do not use self-harm for attention. People who self-harm try in so many ways to hide it. They wear long sleeves, they wear long pants, they use excuses on how they got the injuries that they have. This is not an act of attention, it's a coping mechanism in their lives. What are some of the dangers of self-harm? You might be thinking, well, self-harming helps me to deal with some of these things that I just can't deal with in any other way. So why should I stop? One of the reasons that self-harm is dangerous is infection. May seem obvious, but it is very important to know. Someone is burning themselves, cutting themselves, doing any damage to the surface of their body, there is a danger of infection. If you self-harm and you just notice that this injury looks a little bit different or off from any other injury that you've sustained in the past, please, please, please have it looked at. Another less thought about danger in self-harming is that this behavior becomes addictive. It becomes a pattern that we engage in. We have these negative feelings, these emotions, or whatever triggers your self-harm. We engage in that behavior and it makes us feel good. We get some sort of a high from it. And so we begin to need that more and more often, and it becomes something that we rely on, and it's not a healthy way to cope. And so we need to find other coping mechanisms that are healthy for us, that can provide that same relief in a healthy way. What are some signs that we need to look for? One sign that someone is self-harming is, like I mentioned earlier, they'll wear long sleeves or long pants even when it's hot outside. Another sign that I kind of touched on earlier as well is that they'll begin to isolate themselves, both physically and socially. They'll spend more time alone behind locked doors. They begin to withdraw from friends. They begin to withdraw from family. They can become defensive when asked about an injury that you've noticed. So that feeds into the behaviors, because then they start to feel like, they're not good enough because they don't get to spend as much time with their friends. It's just this cycle, and it just keeps feeding itself. Another sign, they become accident prone. I fell down the stairs, or my cat scratched me. These accidents just keep happening. What do you do if someone that you know or care about is self-harming? A lot of times the first reaction that someone who self-harms will get is one of anger or frustration or guilt or disgust or just not knowing what to do. This is what we don't want. This concept may be foreign to you, but to the person who's engaging in self-harm, they don't know how else or how better to deal with what is going on. What they need is someone who's not going to judge them. They need to know that you're there to love and to support them. They need someone who will ask how they're doing, but not push it too far. It's important not to make them feel guilty for what they're doing. People who self-harm are often those people who care so much about what other people are feeling and thinking that they would rather suffer themselves than put that on anybody else. Don't give ultimatums. Don't say, if you don't stop this, I can't be your friend anymore. They need your love. They need your support. They will stop this behavior when they're ready. They need you to be there whether they're ready or not. And they need you to be there through the process of trying to stop this behavior, to stop this cycle as well. If you yourself are struggling with self-harm, please know that you are not alone. There are so many people out there who love you and care about you. I love you. I care about you. If you need help, please reach out. Reach out to someone that you trust. Reach out to me. I'll be there to help you any way that I can. If you have a therapist and you haven't been able to talk to them about it yet, do it. That's what they're there for. They're not going to judge you. They're going to be able to help you, and if they can't help you, they will know somebody who can. If you don't have a therapist yet, try to find one in your area. It's honestly going to help you so much. If for some reason you don't feel comfortable yet talking to somebody, or you can't find a therapist in your area, or you're scared to talk to your parents to find a therapist, there is a wonderful channel here on YouTube by an amazing therapist in California, and her name is Kati Morton. And she has videos on all sorts of mental health issues like eating disorders, self-harm, and many other things as well. And she is a great resource. She answers so many questions about therapy, about how to deal with self-harm urges, how to deal with eating disorder urges, how to get on that road to recovery. And so I'm going to link one of her videos in the section below. I'm really grateful for all of y'all watching today, and if you have any questions, you can leave a comment or you can message me, and I would love to help you out in any way that I can. So I hope that y'all have a great day, and I really wish you luck on your road to recovery. Let's try that again.